What is going on, guys, and welcome back to episode 4 of the 2021 Mint 400s race series. Now, I am a complete mess right now. I am leaving probably at 5 or 6 in the morning to go camping for New Year's weekend. I have a headache. I'm not even packed yet. I'm tired. I'm just a wreck right now, but I want to get this video done for you guys so it doesn't get too far out after the race before you guys see this. So today we're going to be looking at the onboard race footage from the GoPros that are on the vehicle and everything. We're going to get a look at what the Mint 400 course is like, show a few highlight points, and then we're going to talk about what brought us to essentially the end of our race and why we weren't able to finish all 3 laps. We're going to talk about what broke on the vehicle, how it broke, all the errors that we had, and we're just going to go over it all. So guys, without further ado, let's just jump right into this video. Alright, so we're on the starting line here. I'm not quite sure the position that we started off in, but again, for a race this big, it doesn't really matter because you're not going based off of how many people you pass. You really want to go for the best time you can, since this race is, I think, just under 100 miles, and it's about 3 hours a lap, so it doesn't really matter where we start off in, but look at how we take off here. 4-seaters underestimated. I keep telling you guys, the 4-seater, it's not holding us back too much. I mean, we're still killing it in a 4-seater versus all these 2-seaters, but I just want to show you guys the infield because, you know, that's my favorite part of all these races is this infield, because it's a track essentially. It's UTVs racing on a track, so it's really fun. I believe the people we were lined up next to was Lumberjack Racing or something like that. I didn't get the best glimpse at who it was, but something I really want to showcase in this race is our Fox podium shots. As you know, over the past few races this year, we've been dealing with installing them fresh and then just fine-tuning from there race after race, and I think we really got them dialed in without revalving. So there's going to be a lot of clips here showcasing how well our suspension is working, along with those HCR, I believe, HCR long travel arms, and just this thing dominates for a UTV. It's handling some nice stuff. Now right here, it's going to get a little slow. They have a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit right here, and I cut out a lot of it because it goes for a while. I just want you guys to try to put yourself in the mindset of these racers. You're at the largest off-road race in Northern America, one of the most difficult off races, and your adrenaline's pumping. You're on the start line, you take off, you're ripping through the infield, racing somebody side by side on all these turns, just to get thrown in a 25-mile-an-hour zone for what I think was about like 7 minutes maybe. And I'm assuming it's just because you're going past all of these like companies and whatnot that are out here. But yeah, I couldn't imagine that feeling of just being really hyped up just to get thrown into a 25-mile-an-hour zone, and then right here they release you back into the desert so you could jump right back at it again. So I don't know how the adrenaline's going at that point from peak all the way back down to 7 minutes of 25 miles an hour back to the desert. I couldn't imagine what that is like. But yeah, they throw you back into the desert here, and you ride on this trail for a little bit before you get thrown into a wide open, flat, like silty type wash. And while being in a wide open, flat, silty wash like this sounds like a good idea, what you're gonna see right here is it's kind of scary because you come out of like a pinpointed trail into a wide open, vast wash, and then you have to go right back into a pinpointed trail on the other side of it. So you really have to rely on your co-driver, your GPS, and not getting lost in the cloud of silt of the person in front of you and make it right back into that pinpointed narrow trail. And as you can see here, the weather conditions weren't too optimal as far as wind goes for this race because the dust stays where it is. It's not getting blown off the trail, so a lot of this race is being covered by a bunch of dust. But as you saw in there, we were trailing somebody, we saw them in the dust. Now that we hit this asphalt, we just blow right by them. We're going. Well, okay, maybe not blow by, but we passed them. I'm not sure who that is either. I don't recognize the decals on the door or the company, but we get past them pretty good. And this is good because now we're not trailing them. We're not stuck in their dust as much now. We can open it up a little bit more with confidence. And right here is where we're going to start showcasing some of the suspension. Now, like I've said in videos before, and you guys know this if you off-road and use GoPros, but in person, when you're looking at some whoops and stuff, it looks pretty cool. You're doing it, your suspension, you feel it, you got the vision, you got the feel of it all, and then you go back like a day or two later and you're watching this GoPro footage and everything looks smooth and flat. GoPros don't really pick up the depth and severity of terrain and whoops in the desert. So the ones that you do see on GoPro, just know that they're that much more sizable because the GoPro picked them up. And you can also tell by the fact that this isn't one of the newer GoPros that has this stabilization built into it. So kind of factor all that in when you're watching us smash through these, because like I said, these are pretty big, pretty sizable. Our vehicle's taking them, and even with as much as our long travel and tuned shocks are doing, we're still bouncing in some sections. So these are some pretty big things, and our driver and our vehicle is just taking them like a champ. Now I'm going to stop talking for a little bit and let you guys just watch the suspension go to work. These wheels right here, it's a little more difficult just by how far spaced out they are. Usually if they're spaced closer together, you can get that speed and skip right off the tops of them and stuff, but those ones are really spaced out. These ones look even more fun right here, just how unsymmetrical they are. The spacing's different on each one. The takeoff from left and right are different on each one. You got little G-outs like that. It just looks like a fun time, dude. I really want one day to be riding in this race vehicle on these courses because it just looks like a blast. So like I said in episode 3, we come into the pits, the first pit off the finish, or the first pit off the start line, which is only like 20-something miles, I think 23 miles off. And it's not because we needed to, more than we wanted to get information. We don't know the average MPG on this vehicle, so we can't plan all of these races when we need to be coming in for fuel. So we use this opportunity to gauge, okay, we went 23 miles off a full tank, how many gallons did you put in? We did all the math and figured out what the MPG is on this vehicle. So from here on out, we can better plan race after race our pits, and we're not wasting time fueling when we don't need to. So right there I switch out the GoPros because again this is a longer race, and one GoPro battery and SD card would not make it the whole 97 miles it is. So I switch out to another GoPro, and for some reason this GoPro here just doesn't have the speedometer or the track on it. The GPS was turned on. I made sure of it beforehand. I made sure of it, and it still doesn't it still didn't allow me to do it. It said it wasn't turned on, so I don't know. Sorry, we don't have speedometer on this, and map doesn't really matter for a course this big, but it gives you more to look at, I guess, with the suspension now, because we're going to start showcasing it again right here. Also, I should mention, if you haven't seen the first 3 episodes of the series, I'd go back and watch them because it really gives a lot more information on what's going on here and a lot better understanding. So right now, instead of having our normal driver and co-driver that we have, they split up, and we have our driver racing with his son, who is learning to off-road race right now, and then halfway through this race, when they come into pits next time, Garrett is switching in with the original co-driver, and Garrett's going to be the co-driver, and the original co-driver is going to be the driver. Sorry if that was confusing, but dude, just look at the suspension eat here. God, it's so nice. If you've ever off-roaded, like, I'd say like in a stock or mid-travel truck, and then you've gone into a long travel after that, or a side-by-side, something with like actual travel that can handle it, dude, you know, you can watch this footage and feel it in yourself what this must feel like to be floating over this. So we're coming up on somebody again, but they pull over in the middle of a left turn, like a hard, I think it's more than 90 degrees or less than 90 degrees. It's a very sharp turn. I really respect that they pulled over super fast, because there are those racers that don't pull over for a while. But I respect that they pulled over fast. I just wish they didn't do it in a corner, because these things, especially with four-wheel drive turned on, are really difficult to make tight turns. But we pulled it off, I guess. So here's some more suspension footage. it's beautiful to watch. I can't express enough how beautiful this footage is with those Fox podium shocks and the HCR arms. Now right here's something I want to show you. We got some light dust and we're going into a slight right curve hugging this mountain. And it starts to split into two trails and boom, somebody's full spare tire lands in the middle of essentially where the left tire should be going through these whoops, and there's a spare tire sitting there. I was editing this on an airplane and I saw that and I was like, oh my god, Eric must have shit his pants when he saw that, because if you're tunnel visioned on this, going into a broad left turn, narrowed in to half of the thing because it turned into 2 lanes, and you don't see that until last second, and if you go back and look even closer, there's a rock right there, so he had to thread a needle between a big boulder and a spare tire, and he said he didn't even notice it. I don't know, maybe just the adrenaline, he didn't even notice the tire there. But here I threw in a rocky hill climb which looks super gnarly. There was one section of the course that weatherman kept reporting in during the race, saying a lot of people were getting stuck. I'm not sure if this was that hill. I don't think it was, but it could be. It just looked pretty gnarly, especially if you're in those class 11 stock bugs with very low clearance, very narrow tires, weak steel wheels, or I don't know if they're steel, I don't know what they are honestly, but those weak wheels, that's not going to be the most fun to go up. Then we got silted out footage I had to cut out because there's a lot of silt covering the camera. Wind blew it off and now we're into another whoop section. These are the ones you could really smash through at high speeds and just skip off the top of them. You don't have to ride through them and keep, you know, like a dolphin. He's just flying. This is where I wish we had the speedometer because this looks beautiful. Now here's another cool section I wanted to add because it's like a rock core that goes down into a bowl, and all the spectators can line up on the perimeter top rim and look down into this bowl and watch all the racers kind of battle on all these jumps. Some gnarly suspension articulation right here in this corner, and I think it's just a cool area. I would have wanted to be one of those spectators on the rim because it's probably a really cool spot to watch. And I can't tell if this is man-made or not. Like if they brought a tractor into this like bowl and try to like push out that course, but I don't know. It's just a really cool area. You got more suspension articulation going on. I don't think that's a racer. I think that's just like a worker there. Here's some more suspension shots going on. This is they're bobbing right here. They are mobbing and bobbing all at once right there. Because these are pretty far spaced out ones, so they're doing that dolphin just kind of, and then this guy. That's a pretty rough spot to break down, especially with all this dust, buddy. I hope they're okay. I hope they didn't get hit, but...
Bro, you're good. Go.
Okay, then the camera dies. I swap out a new one here, and this is where the two drivers swap in, the two new driver and co-driver. So this is the original co-driver with Garrett as his co-driver. And I've always heard from Garrett that the co-driver here, Bob, who's driving, is a bat out of hell when he's behind the wheel, and I can definitely see it in this footage now. I'm glad the speedometer was on his drive because you can see him just rip through this course for these first few clips. This guy really is. He puts the pedal to the metal, he gets that vehicle moving, and he smashes through all like that. He smashes through anything in his way, and that's really good. But the one thing I did see with this pedal to the metal type mentality is there's a few corners that he could have slowed down a bit earlier for, because I just think he carries too much speed to these corners. Some he overshoots a little bit and has to like overcorrect and take a wide swing on. And there's one that I'll particularly point out, but before we get into that, just check out how fast he's flying through these narrow lanes, sweeping turns, and whoops, he's just smashing through it, dude. Look at this. This is some premium, dude. I'm gonna clip some of this and throw it on Instagram because this is some premium off-roading right here, I'm telling you. Suspension's going to work right there. This isn't the stabilized GoPro either. This is the older model that doesn't have it. So right there you can kind of see he almost overshot it. He caught it barely, but he was riding that wall in the turn in those ruts. He made the turn. It doesn't matter. Right here, they're pulling up on a vintage class vehicle. I think it's the Jeep that was pitting next to us. I think it's called Neverland Off-Road or something like that. And they take a while to pull over, but what I don't get is why Garrett is not leaving the sirens on. He kind of like flashes them, like blares them, like whoop, whoop, whoop. You know, he should have just pressed it and left it on, because over off-road exhaust and engines, it's really hard to hear stuff. Even when I have an earpiece on my dirt bike, I can still barely hear what people are saying. So I don't believe that it would be too hard to not hear the siren, which is why you should leave it on. So if they let off the gas at some point, you can hear it. But if you're just doing quick little blares, it could be a moment where they can't hear it. So I don't know if that's why they didn't pull over super fast, or if other reasons why they didn't pull over, but yeah, I don't know why he didn't just leave the siren blaring on them. Plus, with all this dust, it's kind of hard to find a path where you can pass them and not go straight into the bush, so I think they played it smart here, just trailing them until they pulled over or had a clear vision to pass them. So I think the best thing they could have done right now is just ride it out like this until they had that clean pass. And then they pull over for us, we get around and we can shoot into the corner and take off. Now, something I want to showcase coming up here is where I think we started to have our problem with our race vehicle, which led to us not being able to finish all 3 laps. Right here coming into this corner, listen to it, you'll hear it. Right there where we skipped sideways. If you play it back in the middle, that middle berm, so you got the 2 trenches and that middle berm right there, there's a chunk taken out of the middle berm, so the front tire went, hit it, but there's the steering for the front end, so it just pushed it sideways. Then the back tire comes in sideways and clips that hard cutout in the berm, and I think that's what did us in. Now right here, keep listening. You'll hear the tires start like smacking the fender, and you can kind of see it as we slow down on the passenger side. We had a blowout. I'll throw the picture up. If you haven't gone and checked the race day video, I think that's episode 3. There's a clip in there where we explain what happened and a picture of the tire. But essentially, something had to go through it, because there was a hole probably the size of a baseball in the barrel of the wheel. So it went, popped the tire, then went straight through the barrel of the wheel and blew it out. The tire ripped completely off like an alligator arm, just smacking. That's how they knew they blew it, because Garrett said he saw it come over and start smacking smacking the door like tsh, tsh, tsh. So they were down for about 20 minutes, I think, 18 minutes, I think, doing that change. Then they're back on the road again. They radio it in, mile marker 55, blown tire. They're driving, and at this point, they still don't know anything's wrong with their back left tire, because they're still flying like 45 miles an hour through whoops right here. They don't know anything's wrong yet. And maybe it wasn't too bad of a hit whenever it did hit, and just smashing through whoops like this is what kept making it worse and worse until they make it to the next pit. I'm not quite sure, but again, we're going to talk about this at the end a little more. They come up on some more people. Again, another bad spot to break down in. I don't know if they broke down or just buried themselves on accident, because that looks pretty soft. It looks like their back tires were like halfway down. Their back wheels are tucked. So they pull into the other pit, which is pit B for us. Mile marker 70 something, I think. Or yeah, I think it's mile marker 70 something. They pull in. They're fixing that front left tire. They're fixing that front right tire, and then you hear Eric ask Bob, is there anything else we should check? And he says, check the rear left tire. So I think he knows when he hit that something might have happened just because of how hard it was. And I wish this GoPro footage recorded for maybe a minute or 2 longer, because over our radios we heard as they were pulling out of the pit right here that pit B radios into them and says, hey, hold on, your back left tire is like wobbling when you're driving, turn around and come back to the pit. But we didn't catch that audio on here because the GoPro died. So essentially what happened here now, they radio that in saying, hey, your back left tire is wobbling, come back in. They bring it back in, and that's when we got the news. Again, I know I've said this multiple times, go back and watch episode 3, because these will like play into each other perfectly. Like, these will fill in the gaps for each other. You go and watch that, and they're working on it for like 20 minutes, 40 minutes, maybe like an hour before they radio our pit and say, you know what, guys, pack it up and come over to this pit. We got some problems. So we head over, and long story short, the bearing inside of the rear hub assembly was just blown. It was shot. Again, I'm thinking that's when there was that cutout in the berm, that hard cutout. Front tire goes in, hits it, it pushes the vehicle sideways. Now the back tire's coming in and it hits the sidewall of it, probably damaging that bearing. And then if that didn't do it in, just all the tension of off-roading over the time from when that hit to coming in the next pit is probably what did it in. Now, we didn't have an extra hub assembly or bearing or anything that we could have thrown on to finish it. So we did what we could. We took out the rotor. I think the rotor. We took out the rotor, I think, so there wasn't that friction of the wheel wobbling and just rubbing against it. We took that out, and we just limped it for the next, I think, 28 miles to the finish line. And unfortunately, we passed after the threshold. Essentially, the threshold is 8 o'clock. If you cross the finish line before 8 o'clock, then they send you out on lap 3. If you cross after 8 o'clock, they bring you in and send you to the podium because just how long it's going to take to do that last lap. They don't want people out in the desert that late at night. Like, the race is essentially over. So we passed just after 8 o'clock. We didn't get to start a third lap, and they sent us to the podium. So we technically finished. We finished the race. We didn't DNF. That's great. Like I said, LESD Motorsports, we don't quit. So yeah, guys, that is the story of what happened, kind of unraveling it all for you guys and letting you know kind of how everything shook out. Again, I urge you to go watch, starting at episode 1 of this series, watch episode 1, 2, and 3 so you get the full story leading up to this. It's a great series to watch. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to follow not only the LESD Motorsports on our journey, but just the channel, subscribing, showing your support, commenting, liking, and joining us for this series. Stay tuned, subscribe, because there are a lot more videos to come, guys. I'm going, like I said at the beginning of this, I'm going out to the desert tomorrow morning bright and early, and I'm going to be recording New Year's weekend of off-road fun. So if you haven't already, guys, subscribe to the channel. We are shooting for 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2022. Help me make this come true, and tell your friends and family about this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.